Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're looking at Polestar. Not just any Polestar, in fact. Today we're looking at the Polestar 7. This is the Polestar 7 that is to replace the Polestar 2 in the brand's next generation lineup. The CEO, Thomas Ingeloth, detailed Polestar's future after Volvo's non-dramatic divestment. The Polestar 2 electric crossover won't be directly replaced by a like-to-like successor when it reaches the end of its lifespan, instead being succeeded by a substantially different new car called the Polestar 7. Since arriving in 2020 as Geely's own Swedish brand second production car, the electric car has topped 150,000 sales in 26 different markets worldwide, and it was recently extensively updated with a new drivetrain configuration and technical functionalities. The Polestar 2 is expected to reach the end of its life around 2027, but the Polestar CEO Thomas Ingeloth has revealed that the firm will not replace the 2 with a Polestar 2, hinting at a radical reinvention for what has been one of the world's best-selling electric cars for the past 4 years. The CEO had to say this, and I quote, "It will be the Polestar 7." End quote. He said, confirming that the brand will continue with its chronological model naming strategy beyond the launch of the 6 supercar in 2026. This is very interesting for a lot of reasons. On one hand, this is not the first time I've heard about the Polestar 7. Thomas Ingeloth was talking about the Polestar 7 a couple of years ago. I think it might have been in late 2022, perhaps. He was talking about the Polestar 7, and he was specifically saying this will be a perfect car to be built in Europe. Let the Polestar company get its own European factory and manufacture the Polestar 7 in this factory. And whilst I've always speculated that this Polestar 7 could be anything, it could be a pickup truck, it could be a big SUV, it could be another supercar, but for the most realistic, most intentions, I've always considered it will most likely be a Polestar 2 replacement. I've said this in previous videos, and you can go check out those videos to find out for yourself. But I've always considered the most realistic thing is that the Polestar 2 will eventually need some sort of replacement, which brings me on to the other topic in this video. Does this mean that at some stage, this beautiful car, it will no longer be produced at all? That's actually really difficult to come to terms with, because a lot of people, including myself, we love the Polestar 2 exterior design and interior design. And to lose this car, I think it's going to be a tough decision for the Polestar company to make. Now, they say the 7 will be a replacement, but will it actually be? Will the Polestar 2 completely be removed from the market? And will the Polestar 7 then take over? I mean, it's possible. Polestar is the sort of brand that would do this, because while they're building their name, they're building their name as this luxury EV company, part of that is releasing cars in limited numbers. So the less Polestar 2 there is on the market, the more valuable they will be as a collector's car. At the moment, it's like 150,000 out there, but to be honest, there's so many other cars out there that are being produced in so many larger numbers, not to mention accidents, all sorts of things that could potentially happen. If this is one of those strategies that Polestar is using, where it's like, okay, we introduce a car for a few years, but eventually it's going to be replaced, and all you'll be left with is the existing models. That's all you'll be left with. It's such a difficult decision, but at the same time, it's like, I really understand the idea behind it, but it's also such a difficult decision, because this is genuinely one of the most beautiful cars you'll ever see. As a sedan car, it's remarkable. It's so specific. It is so specific. The Polestar 2 is extremely specific. Everything about this car is very specific. You cannot look at this car and say, oh, it looks like that, or it looks like this. No, it doesn't. I don't know what this car looks like, except for the fact that it has a little bit of similarities with Volvos. And that's expected, because originally it was supposed to be a Volvo. But apart from that, this vehicle is beyond distinctive. So there's two things to be talking about in this video: the upcoming Polestar 7 and the fact that we might be losing the Polestar 2. This video is both exciting but also sad. So at this early stage, Thomas Ingeloth wasn't willing to share the details of what the 2's replacement could look like, and I quote, "What type of car and how we will do it, we can discuss when it's time." Ingeloth did suggest that it would be comparable position to the 2 and occupy the same positions in Polestar lineup. But he stressed that the launching generation after generation of the same car can impose limitations and stiffen innovation. And this is where I can absolutely agree with Thomas Ingeloth. I can agree with Polestar 100%. Keeping the same car design, keeping the same platform for too long, eventually you're going to run out of space to innovate and things to improve upon. Let's take a look at the original Tesla Model S. That car has been out since 2012 or 2013. It's incredibly old design, but they've updated it continuously over the years, and that's because it was built for that purpose in mind. And if we're being completely honest, that car is perhaps not going anywhere anytime soon. It's probably going to stay with us for another 5 to 10 years. Now we could honestly see Tesla introducing the replacement Model S. Will it be called the Model S? Will it have another name? It's hard to say. But we can see that because their technology has grown so fast that eventually they're going to want to introduce something else. And of course, eventually they're going to realize that even the Model S has its limitation. The platform, the design, everything has its limitations. So after a while, it will only make sense. Okay, we just have to design a new car. Maybe similar. Of course it'll be similar, but it'll be a new car. So I understand that because let's think about one of the most important things for these vehicles. The space in the interior and the range. Now, the range is very difficult to improve continuously because the platform is already built and that's very difficult to change. Additionally, this platform was originally built for a gasoline engine, for a petrol engine. It was supposed to be a car with an engine, not a motor. So this design it was not intended an electric car at all. So the fact that it is an electric car and the fact that it has been so successful and the fact that it's loved by so many people worldwide, it's kind of like a miracle. I don't think there's any other vehicles on the market that was originally intended to be a gas vehicle, then they transformed it into a electric vehicle that is as welcome as the Polestar 2. I don't think there's any other vehicles. We know that BMW does it with the i4. We know that Mercedes, they do it. They use the same platform. Yes, this does happen. But do they get appreciated similarly to how the Polestar 2 is appreciated? I don't think so. Not even close, in my opinion. Not that I've noticed, not that I've seen. But it only makes sense. Eventually, they're going to have to make a replacement Polestar 2 car. And eventually, it's going to make sense for them not to be selling the Polestar 2 anymore. Costs to build these things. With its design, I think there's so much improvements that they want to make to cut down on costs, but they perhaps can't. So by designing a new car, which will be the replacement to the Polestar 2, they can put into consideration everything. Future development, future expansion, future innovation, not to mention range upgrade, not to mention technological upgrades, and just so many areas. How can we cut costs? Just so many areas that they have to consider when designing a new car. So we've got some more statement from the Polestar CEO, Thomas Ingeloth, and I quote, "As much as we might build a very similar car, because it has a different number, we won't see this natural trap where we're boxed into that concept of what the car had been." And I completely understand that because basically what he's saying is that the Polestar 2 is already the Polestar 2. There is no change in it. You can upgrade it little by little, and they've done that really well. There is so much limitations, and we can clearly tell they wish they could do more. They wish they could offer us more in the Polestar 2. But it's a very limited design. It's a very limited interpretation of what a modern electric vehicle is supposed to be. And Polestar wants more flexibility. And ways they can use this to their advantage is very simple. by stopping production to replace it with the Polestar 7, the Polestar 2 will become highly collectible, just like the Polestar 1. Not the exact same. The Polestar 1 is insanely collectible. The CEO also went on to say, and I quote, "As nice as it is to have a Volkswagen Golf category of car, it is very limiting in terms of innovation power, because you're always back in the box of what the Golf should be." Again, he's throwing another hint. They're probably not going to create a competitor to the Mercedes A-Class, the BMW 1 Series, the Volkswagen Golf, or the Audi A1. They're probably not going to create a hatchback. That's not a replacement for a sedan family car. They want to replace the sedan family car. That's not a Golf. And a Golf can be it's boxy because it's a hatchback, so it limits you on innovation and upgrades over time. So again, he's just pointing out the obvious. So he also said at some point you get into this strange situation where you're double-digit generations and it's really questionable. That's a very interesting point. So the Polestar 7 is set to swap from Volvo's derived compact modular architecture, really, that underpins the two, onto a new EV-specific platform from another brand in the Geely Group. Most likely a variation of the sustainable experience architecture that underpins the Polestar 4. Okay, now we're getting somewhere, so it could have some similarities to the Polestar 4. And that seems mostly logical, because the Polestar 4 is perhaps one of the most similar car in the Polestar group lineup to the Polestar 2. It's very similar in so many ways, and it's hard to explain. Now, that slightly larger electric crossover offers up to 379 miles of range, can charge at 200 kilowatts, and get 0 to 62 in as little as 3.8 seconds. Although by the time of the 7th introduction, new technology will certainly allow for improvements across the board. Ingolf hinted that the future of the two, he has shared detail of Polestar midterm business strategy in light of Volvo decision in February to reduce its stake from 48.3% to 18%. Ingolf said that the resulting change in the share structure that Polestar is a non-dramatic situation, because it was always planned that Volvo would reduce a very high percentage to a lower percentage, and Polestar would obtain funding from other sources. It was always clear that the money shouldn't just come out of the pocket of the owners, and we have to find ways of financing it without going to Volvo and Geely saying, "Mommy, Daddy, we need money," said Ingolf. That well said, Thomas Ingolf. Really and truly, well said. I think to all the haters out there that are saying that Thomas Ingolf shouldn't be in charge of Polestar, I think he just proved you wrong. Just by what he's saying and showing his intentions. Well said, Thomas Ingolf. I would seriously want to know what all the haters and detractors have to say now. Now that you know his intentions with the Polestar company, what do you have to say now? Do you now trust him to continue running this company? Look at other EV companies out there that are seriously struggling. I'd say Polestar has done remarkably well so far, with the help of Volvo and Geely, of course. But you can see they're obviously trying to be more independent by getting outsourced funding. That's pretty good. Now, Volvo's reduction in stake came around a fortnight before Polestar confirmed it had received $950 million in new external funding in the form of a 3-year loan, and Ingolf lamented that the headline came in the wrong order. We could say at the end of February when we announced that we had a club loan of $950 million, but of course that was 2 weeks too late to counterstrike the big bad headline that came when Volvo announced it would reduce its ownership in Polestar, he said. Everyone thought we had a big crisis situation, so it's unfortunate that we didn't have this piece of news 2 weeks earlier. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Obviously, what he's basically saying is everything that Volvo did was always planned. It was always supposed to be that way. Volvo was always intending to lower their percentage ownership in Polestar. This is not news. This is something that they plan to do for a very long time. And this would make a lot of sense. This is a very common strategy within business. Parent companies or angel investors, they often lower the percentage of ownership within the business after some time, after the company gain a bit more independence, of course. And Volvo and Geely will continue to do this little by little as Polestar becomes a slightly more independent business. Now, Polestar needs an estimate $1.3 billion in total to finish development and establish production plans for its upcoming new models. And Ingolith is confident that the company will be able to secure a $350 million loan that remains unaccounted for. So asked whether the ongoing softening in EV demand could affect Polestar prospects of reaching its break-even point in 2025 as planned, Ingolith acknowledged that the firm is not immune from market trends and that the drop of EV sales is in fact that make us work even harder in convincing people about the greatness of our products. But he also added, and I quote, "We aren't BYD, we aren't Tesla. We don't have factories and volumes that go into millions. We have very clear premium luxury target audience and portfolio that is catered to that. We aren't in the volume games of the mass market." Polestar cited, and I quote, "challenging market conditions as a factor in the decision that could cut about 15% of the global workforce, some 450 jobs, earlier this year. The company also revised its forecast down slightly in light of the softening of EV demand, predicting that it will sell between 155,000 to 165,000 cars in 2025. Still ambitious, said Ingolith, but not dreamy. European technophobia. Innovation is not easy to sell in Europe. There is a lot of conversation and skepticism towards the new things, and I think this is hindering us. We have to be a bit more open and a bit more speedy in embracing it. Tariff on Chinese cars. It is another real obstacle for building successful international companies, and that's for each and every international offering company. I don't think that it's in the big picture, it's financials for the progress of the nations. He's right in saying that, because why restrict Chinese cars from being sold if the goal is to get as many EVs on the market as possible so more countries can have a more sustainable future? If that really is the goal, why stop Chinese brands from excelling? Is it perhaps because it threatens current European brands such as Mercedes, Audi, BMW, Volkswagen? The list goes on, Porsche. So sticking with the 6, the Polestar 6 will be a natural consequence of us putting the 5 into production and the tech that the 5 will bring into life. It will naturally be based to the 6 into production. There's so much shared technology, it's a home run. Making Polestar different to Volvo, flipping hell. If you don't see the difference between the Volvo EX90 and the Polestar 3, then I don't know what we still have to do to make these brands differentiated. Sorry, there's only so much talking that I can do. Drive an EX90 and drive a 3, and if you don't distinguish the differences, then I can't help you anymore. Well said, Thomas Ingolith. I'm going to send this video to anyone, any and everyone who says that this guy should not be the CEO of Polestar, all because he's a designer turned CEO. I believe he's originally a designer, or either designer or engineer turned CEO, but clearly this guy knows what he's doing. And let's be honest, do you really think that Volvo and Geely would have given this guy the job if he wasn't fully equipped to handle what it is to run a company? No, I don't think so. And so far, Polestar has done nothing but design beautiful vehicles and make wonderful vehicles. Seriously, have we heard any serious, worrying criticism about the Polestar 2? No, we can only expect higher expectations for the Polestar 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and 7 and onwards. This is a company with a great reputation, and that's partly because it's been led by two great companies in Geely and Volvo, and a really good CEO, Thomas Ingolith. So, yeah, we should have a bit more patience and a bit more faith. So this has been a great video to make. Thank you for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.